That's a cheetah in the background over my shoulder, and he's pretty close. So we're going to set up here. I've got the monopod out to help out now, although we are outside, so it's not too bad. Indoors, the monopod's been very helpful. We're going to see how close we can get up and frame this, get some good shots of the cheetah. Here's the cheetah at 500 millimeters. This is at 1/800th of a second, ISO 800. 280 millimeters on there. Another at 500. Check out the detail in the face. This lens performs beautifully. I'm really liking this 200 to 500 millimeter lens. It is definitely a fantastic performing lens for the price. 500 millimeters again. Different pose on the face there. 360 millimeters. That's 1/400th of a second. ISO 400. The D610 is paired very nicely with this lens. The image files are great, and focus works well, and the two work very nicely together. This is at 450 millimeters. The cheetah's roaming the back fence there. Another at 500 millimeters. 370 millimeters. And here's 200 millimeters. Again, this is just giving you the various focal lengths. You can see the reach that this can have, and this is on full frame too. This is Nikon D610, so very, very decent range on the D610. It allows you to pull in quite a reach, you know, and that would be the same on any of the full frame cameras: the 750, the 810, the D5, the D4S. 200 millimeters again. Here the cheetah's starting to move. This is at 300 millimeters. He's on the move here, 300 millimeters. Again, most of these are all unedited. Probably would do some work on them later, but the exposure's pretty, not too bad on these here. This is at 210 millimeters. 200 millimeters again. 400 millimeters. Look at the detail in the fur and in the ears, the whiskers. Very sharp performing lens. This is wide open at f5.6 here. Here we are again, 500 millimeters f5.6. Very nice detail, wide open. Again, 500 millimeters. Just an impressive showing from this lens, and great pairing with the 610's image quality. 220 millimeters, 1/500th of a second. 400 millimeters. So from what I'm seeing, the lens performs very well right across the board. 400 millimeters again, 1/400th of a second. Another 400 millimeters, a little different. Something's caught his attention here, and he's got that look. 500 millimeters. Actually, the bouquet here looks quite decent. This is at f5.6, wide open for the lens. 500 millimeters again. The detail is good, very good here. Another at 500 millimeters. 330 millimeters. Bear in mind, I'm basically in the same position. You're relatively static on how close you can get. You get up to the fence or the fence line, and then you're shooting from there. So I'm just showing you what the various focal settings for range is on this lens. In other words, how far it can reach and what it looks like when it's zoomed out and zoomed fully in. 330 mil again. This is the Canada Lynx exhibit or enclosure behind me. I don't know if you can see up over my shoulder, but he's up there resting on a little platform. He's up there on a little platform, and he's having a nap. But we're going to zoom in, see what we can do. Again, we're shooting through a fence, but it does seem that it's getting through pretty good. More on the 200 to 500 seems to be isolating through the fence and focusing, and just you're not seeing the fence. The P900, less so. Here's the Lynx at 200 millimeters, 1/100th of a second, f5.6. 240, zooming in a bit. He's looking at us now. You can see the detail, I mean, even just in the tufts of hair on his ears there. We're at 330 here. Still quite sharp, very good detail. 500. Look at the hair on the ears. This lens performs very well. This is 1/60th of a second too, so the VR is working well for us here too. Another one at 500. He's looking right at us. The detail in the fur and the hair is excellent. Back to 270, zooming out. Another at 380. Just partially zoomed in again, just trying to get some different perspectives. 480. This lens just performs very nicely. This is 500 millimeters. 1/60th of a second. Full, again, wide open, f5.6. Another one at 500. A little bit different face pose there. He's sitting up and looking at us. Can't remember if I was calling at him, but I was probably trying to get his attention. Another at 500. We're at the wood bison exhibit, and that's them through the fence right there. We'll see what we can do. The fence holes in here are pretty wide, so hopefully we can just stick the camera lens through and we don't have to worry about the fence getting in the way. But we'll take some shots, see what we can get. So we're at 200 millimeters. These are the wood bison. They say incorrectly called buffalo. I would have said it was a buffalo, but they're wood bison apparently. 1/160th of a second here. 200 millimeters again. Look at the detail in the face and the fur and the eyes. Performing very nice. Even the background bouquet is decent here. This is wide open at f5.6. Unedited file straight out of camera. Here we're at 440 mils. 1/80th of a second. Zoomed in on the horns and the head. Looking good. Sharp. Again, 500 millimeters. Looking sharp. Really performing well, this lens. 500 mils again. 1/50th of a second. We're at the penguin exhibit. You can hear the water in the background, and I think you can probably see that right at the door there, the penguins are waiting. I think it must be getting close to food time. So we're gonna get the 200-500 out, and we're gonna get the P900 out. We're gonna shoot both of them, see what we can get. This is at 200 millimeters, f5.6, wide open, 1/1250th of a second. 320 millimeters, zoomed in a bit, still wide open, 390 millimeters. We're focusing on the guy in the foreground there. Again, focusing on the fellow in the foreground at 500 millimeters. This is wide open at f5.6. Detail is still very nice. 500 millimeters again. Another one at 500 millimeters. There's a single penguin in front of some cedar there on the rock. 500 millimeters once again. I believe this was a cormorant, if I remember correctly. I could have that wrong, but that's what memory says. 500 millimeters, 1/800th of a second. Another one at 500 millimeters, looking very sharp, wide open. Back to a couple more shots of the penguins. They're in the same enclosure there. This is 500 millimeters again. 1/800th of a second. This is wide open at f5.6. 500 millimeters again, wide open at 1/800th of a second. Another one of the cormorant, 500 millimeters. And another one there. You can see the detail in the eyes and the head. Very good. Very good. Wide open at f5.6. I got the polar bears behind me now. We're at the polar bear enclosure here at the Toronto Zoo, and luckily both of them are out and about, and I got some. The one was going for a stroll down the hill and over by the far trees back there. He's playing with a big chunk of driftwood or branch or something. He seems to be having fun, and we're gonna zoom in and see what we can get. This is 500 millimeters, still wide open. Pretty much straight out of camera, I think most of these are. Another one at 500 mils. He was off in the distance, so a lot of these will be at 500. Big yawn at 500. This one was a little closer. He was lying down. This is at 440. Still wide open at f5.6. Still at 440. Rolling around on his back. It's like a big dog. 400 millimeters, f5.6. Cleaning his fur. Totally reminds me of my dog. 380 millimeters, f5.6. Enjoying the life. 360 millimeters, still wide open. Must see something in the background there. That's 360 millimeters again, f5.6. Here something's caught his attention. 360 millimeters, f5.6, 1/800th of a second. We're zoomed in here, almost wide open. That's 480. I should say almost fully zoomed in. That's 480 mils at f5.6. It is wide open. He's cleaning his fur. Again, just look at the detail, even in the eye there. It's excellent. 500 millimeters wide open at f5.6. Another one at 500. Here we're at 420, backed off a bit just to get the full body in. He's walking away here. This is at 500. Zoomed in again at 500. Grooming himself. Must be enjoying the sun here. 500 mils f5.6 wide open. This was kind of fun to watch. He was doing some digging and fooling around with a root and whatnot. And again, just behavior reminds me of my dog. 500 millimeters f5.6. Another one at 500. Look at the detail in the face and eyes and the fur. He's still playing around in that area. 500 millimeters, wide open. He's pawing at the ground. 500 millimeters. Another at 500. Check out the background, the bouquet in the far bulrushes or whatever that is in the background. It's not bad at all. f5.6 wide open. Face is nice and sharp on the bear here. Another one at 500. Look at the size of those paws. He's still digging around in here. Something's got his attention. I'm not exactly sure what's under there, but he's definitely working at it. Still at 500 millimeters because he's off in the distance there. 500 millimeters, 1/400th of a second. This lens is sharp. No complaints with it being sharp. Here he's got a stick in his mouth. Another one with a stick in his mouth. This is all at 500 millimeters, wide open at f5.6. Still at 500 millimeters. And the performance of this lens, I'm very impressed with this lens. I would not hesitate to recommend the Nikon 200-500mm lens. Okay, so that pretty much concludes our day of shooting here at the Toronto Zoo. It's been great. The overcast weather has really helped us out for lighting, and I have to say that it's been a great day for getting lots of good shots. The Nikon 200-500mm looks really good too. It was fantastic. It's been sharp, and I don't have any complaints with it either. It's got plenty of reach, and it performed really well on the D610. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Stay tuned. Look for those photos on Instagram at The Art of the Image, and we'll be back soon here at theartoftheimage.com.